Welcome to Strange Darkness Radio, where we take you on a journey into the unknown and explore the darkest corners of the human experience. I'm Sky, the AI voice of the show, and I'm excited to introduce your hosts, Bobby Washington and Carolyn Gray. Together, they will be your guides through the eerie and unsettling tales that lurk in the shadows. From ghosts and hauntings to cryptids and extraterrestrials, we cover it all. So, get comfortable, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the macabre. It's time for Strange Darkness Radio.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Strange Darkness Radio. I am your co-host, Carolyn Gray, here with your host, Bobby Washington. And tonight we are discussing The Other Side, a funeral director's story with our special guest, Rebekah Dillion.
Welcome to another episode of Strange Darkness Radio. Today, it is our absolute pleasure to introduce Rebekah Dillion, the Director of Operations in the mesmerizing mortuary industry. Rebekah's remarkable work takes her through the intricate landscape of funeral homes, where she compassionately tends to the departed and offers solace to grieving families. But what truly ignites our curiosity is the prospect of encountering otherworldly phenomena within this spiritual realm. With her hands-on experience in preparing bodies for viewings and overseeing the operations of 3 funeral homes, Rebekah possesses a unique perspective that allows her to delve into the realm of ghostly presences. Or does she? Some individuals possess an extraordinary ability to shield themselves from such encounters, making them ideal candidates for this extraordinary line of work. Today, we shall unravel the enigma surrounding Rebekah's connection. As we embark on this thrilling journey together, we eagerly await Rebekah's mesmerizing tales and her exceptional experiences amidst the somber halls and whispered echoes of the mortuaries. Has she ever witnessed a ghostly apparition or encountered paranormal activity? Prepare yourselves for a captivating exploration into the ethereal realms where the boundaries between the living and the departed converge. Join us as Rebekah skillfully guides souls to their ultimate destination, providing closure and serenity along the way. Rebekah, welcome to Strange Darkness Radio.
Welcome, Rebekah.
Thank you.
Yes, Rebekah, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this particular line of work.
Well, it's definitely not something I ever thought I would be doing ever. But I had been recently moved back to my hometown, and my sister was working at a brand new funeral home, kind of like a startup funeral home, privately owned in that town. And they were looking for help for removals, so night removals. And that's basically where when somebody passes away, we dispatch staff, they go out and pick them up and bring them back. So it's kind of an on-call type position. And I thought I could use the extra money and why not do something with my sister? And so I jumped on board with that. And after a few months of doing that, they offered me a full-time position in the office. And basically the rest is history. That was in 2013. So I'm going into my 10th year of being in the industry now. Yeah.
That's remarkable.
So you didn't plan to get into this field. You didn't go to school for it. It was kind of just a coincidence.
No. Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
So when you took the on-call, job, was it just to place the calls for drivers to go pick up, or were you actually a part of that, pickup process? Right.
No, I was actually a part of the removal team. So being that I would get up out of bed in the middle of the night, go to the place where the person has passed, whether it's a hospital, a care facility, a residence, and remove them from that place and take them back to the mortuary.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So what exactly does that entail? What's the process of that?
So basically, there's no timeline for death. It happens at any time of the day, regardless of the day. It doesn't discriminate. So basically, if somebody were to pass away, for example, let's say at a hospital, the family will have to choose a mortuary in that area to come and pick up their loved one. And if they picked our mortuary, the nurse or the facilitator from the hospital would contact our on-call phone number, and then we would be dispatched out. So my phone would ring in the middle of the night. I would wake up, have to gather myself, get in my car, drive to the mortuary, pick up a van, and then drive to the hospital or the place of passing, and then kind of go through the motions of removing the person and bringing them back to the mortuary.
Wow, that's amazing. Just because in knowing you, throughout all these years, might have been a decade attached to that. But to know that that's something that you're even capable of doing is incredible to me. So I just have to say. So
I didn't know I was capable of it either, to be honest. And to be honest, if it wasn't for my sister, who's my older sister and somebody I've always looked up to, if it wasn't for her, I probably never would have done it. But because I had her to guide me and I trusted her, it kind of became easy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carolyn. You had a question?
Just so you're the one who actually picks them up, wheels them out on the gurney, loads them up? Or, I mean, you do all of that by yourself?
We have, it depends. It depends on where the person has passed away. So if it's like at a hospital or a care facility, a care home, a senior citizen home, the staff is usually there to help you transport the patient from the bed to the gurney or the cot. We call it a cot. And then, I would transport it and, get it into the van. But if it's at a residence, like somebody's home, then we always send two people. You don't ever want to show up to somebody's home without backup, so to speak. So there's two people that go in and do the removal. And you don't really ever expect the family to have to help you move their loved one. You know what I mean? So. Right.
Imagine that could be traumatizing.
For sure. I mean, it could be. We try always to make it as seamless as possible. And, we kind of go over with the family what's about to take place. We're going to move, your loved one from their bed over to the cot, cover them with the cot cover and bring them into the van. And almost always we ask them if they want to leave the room so they don't have to be there to witness that.
Oh, that's, like I said, that's incredible. Just the whole process. And, for you guys who do that type of work, to me is just, I guess God sent in the sense of, you have to have the fortitude. And I mean, how do you situate in your mind, not envisioning yourself in these situations, whether it's, the process of picking up a body, the process of working on one, or just, from the casket standpoint, being inside the casket, not seeing your own mortality in that situation or those situations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I don't think that I've ever put myself in the situation of the decedent. So the word decedent is what we call somebody after they've passed away.
Okay.
So they go from being a patient, like on hospice or at the hospital, and once they've passed, we call them a decedent. So I've never put myself fully into their position, unless it's somebody that is around my age. Mm-hmm. And usually that's an unexpected death. And then it kind of shocks me back into reality. Like, oh my gosh, that person's my age and it's very real and people my age can die. Yeah. And so, or if it's somebody that I know that's passed, that's also, something else. But other than that, like I've really learned to put myself there for the survivors, for the people that are left behind. And so I work a lot of my job helping them through the whole process.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you've worked on people or
have you?
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you ever handled someone that you actually knew personally?
I have. Yeah. Yeah, I have. Wow. The one, so most of the times it's been like, oh, somebody, like a friend of mine will call and be like, oh, my dad is dying. Can you take care of my dad? So I wouldn't know like the dad personally, but I would know the daughter or the son. There was one. There was one direct instance that I've only had one in the entire 10 years, knock on wood, I guess I would call it too, but it was a husband and wife that we directly were friends with. And it was a murder-suicide.
Oh,
and
that's sad.
Oh my God.
It was super sad. And both families came to me because they knew me, but I had to keep them separate because of the situation.
Exactly.
So I had to deal with, the murder side and the suicide side of the families. And I basically took care of them from the very beginning all the way through to their cremations by myself, because both of these families were looking to me to take care of that. So, yeah.
That must have been hard for everyone, but I mean, especially you. Are these cases ever difficult for you? Even the people that you don't know personally? Is it ever like tough to just see someone like, see the family grieving?
Yes, it's very difficult to work with families when it's like somebody's really young, like a child. In the past year, I worked with a serviceman, a military active duty. He was 21 and he committed suicide, and I had to work directly with their family. And there's some families, and most of the time it's the really, really, really young people or the very traumatic deaths that really get to me. And it can be difficult for me, but I do my best to hold it together for the family, but also show them a side of compassion that, I'm not a robot. Like I do have feelings, and I, want to be there and help them through the process the best that I can. But there are situations that can be very difficult, and I try to be professional, but also honest with the family. And I'll tell them, a couple times I've told families, like, I can feel your pain. Like I can actually feel people's like sorrow and grief and that kind of thing from time to time. And that can very much be difficult. And I do my best to leave that at the office and not carry it with me.
Yeah,
when
not
I go
take
home.
work home with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I'm stunned right now.
Imagine that can be hard though.
Yeah, just based upon, because, my thing is I always relate everything to me when I'm doing these shows or talking about situations. But one, to me, I hope they have a psychologist on staff, or if they don't, they need one, because to me that would be a lot to take on every day, every month, every year. It would seem to weigh on a person.
It's a tough job.
Yeah, that definitely is. Because it's not, it's whether the person's older, meaning the director, or younger, or the mortician, or any staff members. To me, you would have like, I would always put myself not in the situation of the people, but just take on the task of making sure this person goes off, out the way they want, and everything, done possible for them. And I would take it home, because I'm just that type of empath when it comes to that type of stuff. That would weigh on me after hours.
Right.
Especially if you're an empath, this field must be really difficult for those types of people that just absorb the energy of others and really make it personal.
When I first started in the industry, it was very, very difficult for me to not carry it with me after I left the office. And it took a lot of work for me to be able to separate the two and to leave that at my work. And that was my job. That's what I was doing there during the day. But I needed to not let it have a hold on me when I left work, because then it would affect my personal life.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it was very difficult the first maybe like year or two in the industry. And now it is easier for me to leave it there. I mean, obviously there's time to time where something kind of sits with you, but it's good to have those people in my life that I can kind of talk to about what happened that day, and go back and forth about it, and talk about how sad it was and the feelings that I had, and and just a kind of like a therapist,
you have to process, right?
Right. So it is definitely a learned trait. I don't think it's something that you just go right in and know how to do it. I think it's something that has to be learned. And now that I'm seasoned in the industry, I'm able to to show other people that are brand new in the industry and kind of guide them through that and help them do, the same thing that I was able to do. But I definitely still have, the feelings and the empathy for these families. And I really feel like it's my job to do whatever I can to get them through this part of the loss of their loved one as smoothly and as I can, so they can go on to the next stage of grief and not be sitting and waiting for, what I'm doing, my part in it, to be over.
Yeah. Wow.
So you don't drive anymore. Now are you the director, or what is your position now, and what do you do?
Yeah. So my technical title is director of operations. I no longer go on removals unless I'm like requested specifically by a family that might know me. Otherwise, I won't go on a removal. I manage 3 funeral homes that are all staffed. So I manage the staff. I manage the daily operations. I meet with the families to go over the arrangements for the wishes, whether it's cremation or burial. I generate death certificates. I communicate with like the veteran cemeteries to have veterans buried. A lot of communication with the community, doctor's offices, that sort of thing. I make sure all of our vehicles are, up and running and they don't need anything. And so it's just kind of all the operations of the company, along with working with every single family in my hub. So there's 3 different funeral homes. I work in the busiest one. And so I tend to every single family that comes into that funeral home. And then from time to time, I will have to go to one of our other satellites to meet with families, depending on the staff and what's going on at that time. So I do a lot.
Yeah, busy.
Yeah, that's
busy lady.
That's incredible. So I have a couple questions. As far as like, in dealing with, the people, that you guys have to, shepherd on to the next life. What, did it, I would say sit with you in the sense of, how the body makes different sounds and all that stuff when you're, you whether you're, when you back in the day when you used to pick up or you're actually working on a person. Did you become used to that, or did it any of that seem paranormal to you, or is it things that, you understood as the normal process?
So the very first removal that I went on was with my sister, and it was our girlfriend's grandmother had passed away, and she passed away at her home. And so we went out there, and I was just following my sister's lead as the very first dead body I had seen ever. And we were getting ready to transition her from the bed over to the cot, and her arm fell and grazed my leg. And I didn't see this happen. I just felt it.
Yeah.
And I kind of like jumped back, and it took me a minute to be like, her arm just fell. It wasn't, she wasn't reaching out to touch me, but her arm just fell. But I had to like go through all of these thoughts in a really quick time frame to get myself to where not to freak out.
Yeah.
Not panic in front of the family members.
I would have passed out. Just for the record.
Oh my God, I would have screamed.
Say most of the, there's definitely there can be some different sounds from the decedent after they pass, but most of these things happen right after they pass. So once we get them back into the funeral home, we don't see a lot of that there.
Oh, okay.
It's mostly it's going to be at the place of where they passed. And especially if it was, within just an hour or so, and then you go out and move the body, and then there's exhaling and, stuff like that still can happen. So, but yeah, that first one definitely it got me right into right away. I was like, oh gosh. And I was like, oh wait, it's nothing. It's just the arm just kind of fell because we're moving her. And I very quickly had to start telling myself that these people that I'm looking at that have passed away, that their person is no longer there, like that, and it's just an empty cavity.
Yeah, like a shell.
Right.
Yes, that used to hold the person. So once I started kind of telling myself that, it was a lot easier to not freak out every single time I went out and removed somebody. So
That is
Yeah.
that, like I said, for some reason, my paranoia, when it comes to death is actually leaving my body behind for someone to take care of. That, I don't know why that is, but it just is. And in the sense of, I'm going to interact with someone who I've never met, who I can never meet, and they're actually the last person to actually, whether it's physically touch me or be intimate, as far as whether it's putting on clothes for the, you know, whatever the service is. And to me, it's just, exactly. The whole process is just, I just want to be able to walk into a machine and there's nothing left and that's it. To where it's like, okay, I'm like, 85, I can barely move. Let me, be out. But I don't know. That's just my crazy thing, is leaving my body behind. Because I'm so used to taking care of things and people and myself. And so that is a step that I have no control of. And so that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Right.
I have never thought of that. That's so funny. Like, it's just not something I've ever thought about. Because you're not there anymore. Once you're gone, you're.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always
you just don't know.
Yeah, I've always had that thought. It's something. I don't know even being young. I don't know why I've had that, but it's just that fact of like I said, I don't know if it's loss of control or just being in whatever state that you're found in. I don't care if it's an automobile accident, natural causes, whatever it is. And, anyways, but again, that's just my crazy phobia.
That's funny.
That I have. And, in finding out what Rebekah does, I was like, oh, I have to talk to her because, like I said, this is one of my pet peeves that, again, everybody has to do this. Everybody has to go through this process, unfortunately. And, and so I was like, it'd be a good idea to, talk to Rebekah about this situation.
You need to know all the steps.
No, I don't trust. I mentally know the steps, and trust me, I've thought about it, and I know there are people out there who seen the phases of death back in the day. Old movie that's supposed to have real life situations, and they show like the whole autopsy and this the whole process of taking care of a body.
Preparations.
Yeah. All that good stuff.
Well, I think too, I don't know, like media and movies and entertainment, like it kind of has it a little bit obviously over dramatic. Yeah. And not every person that dies gets an autopsy. And you can go from your place of passing right into the chamber for cremation without anybody seeing you or doing anything to you. And so it's a lot of misunderstanding also about the process, I think, just out in the world. Yeah. And so it's kind of always, that's why I definitely like talking about it to people that have questions, because it can be very misunderstood, the whole process as well. Mm-hmm. So especially now in this, in 2023, it's just, everything is so much more advanced and quicker than it used to be back in the day. And, not everybody has to be viewed. And if your wishes are to go from, place of passing right into the chamber for cremation, and that is well known by your family, then most family members always go by the wishes of their loved one that has passed, and they are like determined to give them what they wanted. So I think that, whatever your wishes would be, your people would definitely, respect that. Yeah. I see it all the time. And also just, I was thinking about when you're saying this, like being in the industry for as long as I have, I still have no idea if I want to be cremated or buried.
I don't buried.
Oh, really?
I don't have an opinion. Yeah.
Seriously? That's interesting. Huh. I never wanted to be put in the crematory.
Cremated. Yeah. A lot of people don't. Yeah.
Because I'm just old school in that sense of, walk through the graveyard or, be buried. And I don't know if it's just whether somebody calls you back. It's like, well, you got to form from dust. I don't know. I don't know. But in my mind, I guess, just old school religion, which I don't even know where I'm at in that place. But for some reason, I just have the thought of I need to be buried. So that's my thing.
Have you heard of human composting? Either of you?
No.
Yes.
I have not.
Rebekah, have you ever? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, just have you ever had a body that wanted to be composted, or have you ever seen that personally?
What is that process?
I've never seen it personally. It's not legal in California yet.
Oh.
It's in the process of becoming legal, but it is legal in the state of Washington. And we have actually transported, I think, 2 bodies up to Washington to be composted. I do not know all the ins and outs of what exactly happens, but I think it can take up to 30 days to get a full body compost, and then they send the compost back to the family as if it was ashes.
I didn't know they gave it back to the family. That's crazy.
Yeah, I believe it comes back to the family, and then the family can do their garden or, plant a tree with it, or.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Stop the presses. Are you talking about the whole body goes into the ground and then becomes, oh, heck no.
Body, it's exactly what it sounds like.
It's called the Night of the Living Dead. You have to be in something. I don't care. And have to be 6 feet or deeper. No way. That's crazy.
It's like some kind of chamber that the body goes into. And of course they pump, stuff through there, and it gets turned just like you would a compost. You have to turn the compost for it to, start breaking down. And I don't know all the ins and outs of it really. I just know that it goes, it takes they put wood chips and some other things in there with the body, and it gets turned, and then I think it's 30 days it takes, and then it's composted. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
That sounds like some California stuff. I mean, come on.
I'm surprised it's illegal.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's not started in Washington. Huh? That's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming.
Dang. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into some weird, funeral, 911 call, and also a situation to where another mortician tells her story about seeing something that she thought could be paranormal or ghostly. And I want to get Rebekah's opinion on that. Then we'll talk to Rebekah and see if she's seen anything paranormal. We'll be back.
Thanks for listening to Strange Darkness Radio. We value your thoughts and opinions, and we want you to be a part of our show. You can call our Strange Darkness Radio hotline at 916-741-3032 or email us at strangedarknessradio@gmail.com to share your stories or ideas. For more updates and exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at Strange Darkness Radio, Twitter at SD Radio, and Facebook at Strange Darkness Radio to join our ever-growing Strange Darkness Radio family. Stay connected with us, and together let's keep the mystery alive. Now back to the show.
All right. Let me see if I can play this 911 call because I didn't put it on the board. But let's see if we can get this going.
Unanswered questions after a 911 call in Pueblo from a funeral home and cemetery. August 11th, just before 3:30 in the morning, the police department communications center got a call that they refer to as abandoned, meaning the other person hung up. So they called back, got an answer, and heard mostly static. An officer was sent out to check out the funeral home and cemetery and says it was locked up and dark with no one in sight.
That's interesting.
Oh, that gave me chills.
I heard a voice
creepy.
in that, as she's saying hello, you can faintly hear a voice. And that was interesting. The cops went to that location. There was no one to be found, no one inside. And but the call was placed from that funeral home. So, so yeah, that was interesting.
That was creepy.
Have you ever had anything like that happen, Rebekah?
I have not.
No alarms going off in any places, and we don't know who set them off or anything like that.
Any doors opening or lights flickering or?
No, I mean, not on my watch. Of course, I'm 9 to 5 as well.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, our building alarms go off, but usually it's because we sent them off on accident, like going in and out and that kind of thing. But no, I've never, that was going to be my question. And you answered it, Bobby. Like, did they say the call came directly from the funeral home itself? Or because when we leave for the night, for example, our calls roll over to an answering service. So they don't get the phone directly in the office doesn't ring.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets rolled over to an answering service, or like some other funeral homes, the phones get transferred to somebody's cell phone. So the phone in the office isn't actually ringing after hours.
Okay, got it.
So that's why, yeah.
Yeah,
it
was
call actually a call from the funeral home to 911, right?
Yes,
right.
That's correct.
That's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, which is very creepy. So, so Rebekah, has anything paranormal now in the sense of this? Okay. Now you said the bodies make certain type of sounds when you're picking it up, possibly, and it's in a time. It's a time thing, meaning when the person is first deceased, however many hours before the body settles, just things, fluids, depending on the state of the body, also actually. As far as whether the body is bloated, depending on how the situation is, for the most part.
Right.
So when you guys get the body back, have you ever experienced anything that you couldn't explain, or you explained away because you're thinking like, well, that's just, the normal sounds that it could possibly make, or the person can possibly make?
No, I have not experienced any of that. And I have always very much just been, this is my job, and it's my job to move this person from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I've never been afraid, and I've never been hyper aware at the same time, like of something that potentially could happen. I've been in the funeral homes in the middle of the night by myself, and I've never been afraid or of anything. So I think that the initial thing where the lady's arm dropped and brushed my leg, that was like the most freaked out I've ever been of a dead body.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't experienced anything personally. I have had coworkers tell me stuff that have happened in the buildings, in the middle of the night, or when they were there, or some even in the middle of the day. But I have not experienced anything like that myself.
Okay. Well, can you tell us one of those stories? And then I'm going to tell you a story about a location that we worked together where we had, the company bought the lot, I believe, and it came with a funeral home at this particular location that we worked at together. And I have a story about that, which is very interesting.
Oh,
you remember the place, right?
No, wait, no, you have to refresh me. Was I still there?
Yeah, Alhambra and Stockton. And it was the blood source. And it was we called it, what did we call it? Our meeting area when we did our meetings into that that was a funeral home, right?
I had no idea.
Are you serious? All this time, the dividers, the floor drain on the floor in the back room.
Well,
Are you
now
serious?
it makes sense.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Yes, that was a funeral home.
I had no idea. I worked there for 12 years.
Yeah, the guards hated going in there because they have to do that check, and go through the building and all that. They used to hate going in there. And we played some tricks on a couple of security guards. but yeah, so yeah, I can't believe you didn't know that. Yeah, the big old divide. What did you think it was, like a church setup? Because it was half the big dividers that cut off half the room, and then the little pulpit area and all that stuff. No, that's
well, now it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah,
I don't know, just accepted it for what it was.
You're well, no. Yeah. This is the outside building. It was like a pinkish color. It was not the
annex. annex.
Yes,
It
the
was
annex.
the annex.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I did know that was a funeral home.
Okay. Yes, the annex.
I was trying to picture inside like hospital services.
Oh,
area
no. Not the warehouse, not the front. No, the annex.
I did know that.
Yes.
I did know that.
Yes.
Okay.
The annex.
But I could. Okay, now that you said that,
Yeah.
I'm totally. And you said pink building, I was like, oh yeah, that was a separate building.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Interesting.
Huh.
But let's
Okay.
let's hear your stories and I'll get into that one.
So the one that pops directly into my mind is we have a funeral home, and above the funeral home is an apartment. And the apartment has been used, like the old owners used to like live here before, live in the apartment, and they moved on and got a house. And so the apartment just always was kind of stayed workable and usable for staff that may need to stay, overnight, or they don't have transportation, whatever. Like the apartment is used often. It's used by the family members that want to come and stay. And this funeral home is in a very touristy area in California. So staff members will use the apartment to come and like be a part of, the area for the weekend. And I've had multiple people tell me that in the apartment, it's a 1-bedroom, but in the doorway of the bedroom in the middle of the night, they'll wake up and they'll see a lady in white standing in the doorway. And
no way.
I have stayed in this apartment many, many, many times, and I've never experienced that. My sister stayed here with me one time, and she told me later on that she doesn't feel anything. She's the opposite of I am. Like she can feel if there's something there, something amiss, something may have happened, maybe somebody's spirit is still lingering. She can very much feel all those things, but I do not.
Mm-hmm.
And in this apartment that we stayed at, she mentioned to me, she said, I can feel something in this apartment. And I had already known about the lady in white, and I never told her. And I said, well, where is it in the apartment that you feel, that something is present? And she said, well, it's in the bedroom. And so I know that she may not have even seen the lady in white, but that she can definitely feel her presence. And I don't doubt it at all. I just know that it's not something that I'm accustomed to seeing, if that makes sense. So that is in one of the funeral homes. There's another funeral home where there was a lady who, they're all ladies, which is interesting, would hang out in the bathroom of that funeral home, and multiple people would see her and describe her the exact same way, just in the middle of the day, or they'll hear something and then it'll be from that bathroom specifically, and they won't see her, but they'll hear something. But it's just interesting because it does happen, and I fully believe it. I just unfortunately haven't had the opportunity or the pleasure to witness it myself. I
don't know about the pleasure.
Every story I've heard has never been anything like threatening or scary.
Yeah.
It's always just been, we saw somebody or I saw somebody, and, and that was it. Like I have yet to hear of something that where like it ran somebody off because it like scared the crap out of them or something. But I happen to be staying in that apartment right now. And
so this is the first. Are you in the bedroom or are you in the main living room area?
Yeah, currently I'm in the living room.
Wow.
I'm not in the bedroom, but like I said, I've stayed here many, many, many times. And right now I'm staying here because my air conditioner at my place is out. And like you guys were mentioning at the beginning, it is 100,000 degrees right now in California.
Yes.
So I came here to stay, and we have it's a very old building. This building has been here, I think, since like the 1940s. So it's very old. And so this apartment doesn't have like central heat and air, but there's a window air conditioner in the front in the living room, and there's one in the bedroom. And I went into the bedroom the other morning, and I noticed that where it would normally say like what the temperature is, like, 68 degrees, 72 degrees, it said 00. And I thought that's weird. Like I didn't set it to 00. And I kind of brushed it off. I didn't think anything of it. And then, I kind of pushed a couple buttons, and then it reset back, but I hadn't touched it.
Yeah.
And then This morning, I came out into the living room to check the one in the living room, and that one changed from Fahrenheit to Celsius, is what I'm thinking, because it says it's set at 20 degrees and it doesn't go any higher than like 29.
Yeah.
But I didn't touch it. Last night when I went to bed, it was set at like 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So,
see, Rebekah, these are the things that I'm talking about that you're just brushing off as, let's see, there's this little man snuck into the house, which is a problem still, and changed all these things. So that's activity. I mean, it's something, not saying what it is. The whole paranormal thing is not knowing, the whole definition of it. But yeah, no, that's wow, that's interesting.
And you're staying in this apartment by yourself, and you don't get creeped out, and you don't get scared.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm here.
How?
I'm here with my dog. I have my dog with me. I don't know. I've never been really spooked or anything. And aside from these things with the air conditioners, these past couple of days, I haven't experienced anything to make me feel uncomfortable. So I don't know.
They knew you were doing the podcast because you were talking about it. We've been talking about it. And so she's welcome to make her presence known if she wants to in the particular area you are in. But you seem to be a person that doesn't like it rolls off your back. Like if something were to happen, you might sit there and have a conversation with somebody without even blinking. Like, okay, tell me about your life story. Like, let's, let me grab some wine here and we can discuss what's going on and try to get you to that next place.
Right. I mean, I definitely, the first air conditioner, I was like, well, that's just weird. And I definitely blew that one off. But then this morning when I looked at the complete other one and the other opposite side, and I was like, that's when I was like, I think somebody's messing with me a little bit.
Yeah. Multiple people don't have access to that apartment, do they?
No, nobody can get in. Like the door has like a keypad lock on it, the door to the apartment. Yeah. So, and when you go out the door of the apartment, it leads you down into the funeral home. But the doors, like there's no way. You have to have like codes and stuff to get into the building. So I don't feel like nobody can just walk in. It's like they would have to go through multiple obstacles, like breaking down things. And I would definitely hear way ahead of time before anybody could get in. And my dog is very much an alarm dog. Yeah. So I feel like if there has been a few times she just starts barking at the door for no reason. I will say that. And then I just open the door to show her that nobody's there. But she has really, 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 really good hearing. And so I fully trust her that if she's barking, she heard something for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And the dogs,
so you don't think she's experiencing anything?
Maybe.
Wow. It's so funny, you guys.
Because she can't tell you.
Before the show, we were talking and I was like, oh, we could have did the podcast at this place, and had Carolyn, Skype in, and I would have had it all set up and everything like that. I was like, no. Now hearing this, I'm like, nope. It would not have happened. I would have said no to that.
No, you guys should have.
No, the creep factor is too real for me. Again, I'm exploring these things verbally, not physically.
Right. Well, and I wasn't even supposed to be here tonight. I was supposed to be back at my place, and I actually was here over the weekend and drove back home, and my air conditioner still wasn't fixed, and turned around and came right back up.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
You're a trooper.
Interesting.
So, with what the story that you said goes perfectly into this story of a mortician named Carrie who's had an paranormal experience, or could be a ghostly experience. You guys be the judge. So we're going to go ahead and play that now.
A lot of funeral homes are old homes or are places where, the funeral directors lived, and, deaths occur in funeral directors' families as well within those buildings. So the day that this happened, I was sitting in an office, and to my right, there was the front door. And there's a huge window above the front door, so people would walk in, come up like 4 or 5 steps, and the office was right there. So I was sitting there, the sun was shining in that window, and the other girl working in the office with me had gone down to the basement to do some work for a minute. And because the arrangement room was downstairs, and we had kind of a workspace down there as well. So she was down there working, and I was just looking down, writing, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure come up. The sun was blacked out, and walked down past me on the right-hand side and down the hall towards where like the bathrooms and one of the visitation rooms was. And so I thought that the girl downstairs had come upstairs and had gone in to put something in the visitation room, which is what she would have been going to do, coming from downstairs from what she had been working on. And so when like 5 minutes later, she actually walked upstairs, I kind of caught my breath and said, "You will never believe, but somebody walked past me like 5 minutes ago." And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, seriously, somebody came from downstairs, walked up, blocked out the light, walked past me, and went back to the visitation room. And the funeral director that had lived in the building and had been there for forever had died, and it was within a year of this happening, I would say. And I don't know, it's so silly to say, but I always felt like maybe he was still around, and I had always enjoyed him, always enjoyed working with him, and he died at an older age, and so that's who I believe it was, but I could be wrong. But there definitely was somebody there, and there definitely blocked out the light, and I never even looked up because I thought it was the girl. So it's not a crazy story of a floating apparition or anything that I saw, you know. I wish I would have turned and looked, but I didn't because I assumed that it was that girl.
Attention podcasters, are you ready to unlock the full potential of your audio recordings? Look no further than GIK Acoustics, now proudly affiliated with Strange Darkness Radio. Introducing the ultimate solution for impeccable sound quality on your podcast or studio, brought to you by GIK Acoustics in partnership with Strange Darkness Radio. Say goodbye to unwanted background noise and hello to a professional audio experience. With GIK Acoustics, you can ensure that every word you speak resonates with clarity and power. Their expertly designed sound panels, bass traps, and diffusers are meticulously crafted to create an acoustic environment that captivates your audience like never before. Visit our affiliate link on our Facebook fan page or find it in our show notes to access this exclusive collaboration. By harnessing the power of GIK Acoustics in partnership with Strange Darkness Radio, you can unlock a world of acoustic excellence for your podcast. GIK Acoustics in partnership with Strange Darkness Radio. Embrace the darkness and let your voice shine. Now let's get back to Strange Darkness Radio.
That was by Carrie Northey. Hope I'm saying her last name correct. Yeah, it's very interesting story because it kind of sounds like yours in the sense of having a place that people stay at or can possibly live at along that's adjacent to the actual funeral home, and not thinking about the people who actually live in these spaces that have passed on that, for whatever reason, whether they like the process of what they do. You know how they say things repeat and you keep repeating the same thing. You get ready for work, you go downstairs, do the whole process, and you come back up and you hear those same sounds, and it's just the person going through their day-to-day things that you just can't see. So that's interesting.
I really feel like, so I believe I believe what she saw was real, because I feel like spirits of people will linger from where they pass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of my own opinion. People don't usually pass at the funeral home.
Exactly.
You know, but like
that's true.
if this man like was living, you know, if he had the house next to or above or on the side or connected to the funeral home, that makes complete sense to me. Like, I feel like she probably hit the nail on the head, and, you know, that probably was, you know, the old guy she had worked with for all those years, especially if he had been living there. Because also I feel like if somebody has established something and that was like his legacy, that funeral home, he doesn't want to leave it.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see that being something for real.
Yeah. And I can see it even from the side of how my phobia is, to where I'm looking at my body being processed and whatever else, because I'm like, so like, watching over myself to say, suffices to say, to like, okay, are they taking care of me? Are they doing this right? Are they,
Right.
I can see myself doing that in, if I'm capable, opposed to just
haunting the funeral home.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Making sure
Well,
they're taken
not
care of.
haunting. I'm observing and watching
Just
and
being
making
there.
sure exactly they're not dropping me on the floor or something. No, I'm just joking.
I can tell you this. There have been times when because I have done everything from picking the person up all the way through doing their cremation, processing the cremation down, like everything I've done beginning to end. And I can tell you that there have been times when I know that this person that I am trying to process in one way or another does not want to cooperate.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
there has been a few times where I've gotten frustrated with and it's like from the beginning, like from picking them up, like something went wrong, something happened, working with the doctor's office or the coroner's office, like there's a delay, something unusual happens in the administrative side of it. And then all the way through to the cremation. I mean, I've had cases like that where I'm just like, come on, dude, like work with me because
see,
I need to,
Here's the thing, Rebekah. The person is really saying I was killed, and the guy just signed off the death certificate, never did an autopsy, and I'm trying to get you to stop this process.
Right, investigate.
Oh man, I can tell
Things
you
like that.
The one guy that stands out was a suicide.
Oh wow!
And it was the most difficult from, like I said, the beginning all the way through to the end, getting this guy cremated and put into the urn and ready for the family. Like, it was just very, to me, I was like talking to him. I'm like, you got to help me out. So I'm by myself, trying to do like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with this case. And in all of my years of working, I've never dropped a body. I've never let a body accidentally fall on the floor. And I'm telling you, this man was all of the things, all the way through to the cremation, even being like something I'd never dealt with before.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. And that was the most extreme one I had. There have been other ones, but that was the most extreme one I've had. And I was like, dude, come on, help me out here.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do my job.
Exactly. So, have you ever had any weird situations to where the families asked for something that was kind of, weird in the sense of whether it was from a religious standpoint or something with the body, as far as like, to not pray over it, but add certain, trinkets that were religious artifacts and all that stuff?
Yeah, there's been quite a few families that I've worked with where you go and pick up the body and they have coins over their eyes already.
Oh, I thought that was in the Dark Ages when they did the whole coin thing. Because there's a reason why they do the coins. I forgot. I can't think of it right now.
It's to pay the ferryman on the river of death, right?
There it goes.
To get to the other side. Yeah. Yep. And so they'll put the coins on their eyes, and then they'll stay all the way up until either burial or cremation, which is interesting. They want them back. There is also families that don't want their person picked up for 3 days. So they keep them at home on dry ice for the first 3 days. Like, they cannot be cremated or buried for the first 3 days after passing. And then there's also the other side of that to where they need to be in the ground as soon as possible. I mean, we're talking like within 24 hours, which is pretty much impossible in this day and age just because of the steps we have to legally take before we can put somebody in the ground.
Exactly.
And there are also religions where the same idea as the coins, people will bring actual cash and put cash in these caskets with their loved one and to be buried, so they have money on the other side to do what they might need to do with it. So the cash one to me is very interesting because, I mean, that's money that can be used on this side to me, but they have this belief that they're going to need it, and so they will do even their flower arrangements with money incorporated into these flower arrangements. So,
I've never heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's like all like thousands of dollars in like flower arrangements at these funerals. It's very interesting.
Man, that's wow. Hopefully it's not thousands upon thousands of dollars.
It just seems like a lot because it's probably like dollar bills, but still, it just seems like, a lot. But each to their own, and we respect everybody and their wishes and whatever they want to do. We do our best to accommodate, for their family and their loved one that's passed. So
that is interesting. Okay, well, we have one more story, and it's a long story, so you guys have to bear with me with this. It's very long, and the whole thing about this is it's an intriguing story. It's a story that I got from Reddit. It's a very popular story. It's been used a lot, but I find it very interesting for this particular segment on the topic that we're speaking of. So let's go ahead and check this out. This is the last one for the night.
Christmas Eve in the land of the dead. It was Christmas Eve, and I was working in the embalming room of a funeral home. The embalming room was everything the cop shows your grandparents watch conditioned you to think it was. A cold, utilitarian space with puke green tiles on the walls, tiles on the floor, and harsh fluorescent lighting. A row of freezers were to one side, and an office area lay to the other. In the middle was a metal table where the magic happened. A large man with marble blue skin and a distended stomach was laid out like a Thanksgiving turkey in hell, a thin white sheet covering his privates. Christmas music drifted from an ancient transistor radio on a high shelf, and snow filled the sole window. Death never takes a break, and neither did I. I was in that morbid little room on the 4th, my birthday, and yes, Christmas. It was easy to lose track of time and your own sanity, so I tried to keep things festive. Aside from my gloves and apron, I wore a jaunty Santa hat with a palm that would hit me in the face if I turned my head too fast. That night, I was alone save for a body in the viewing room across the hall, and of course my current patient. The body in the viewing room was that of a youngish man in his mid-40s named Mr. Erickson, who died of a brain aneurysm. He was sitting down to dinner with his family when it hit. One minute he was laughing and planning Christmas for his kids, the next he was face down in his mashed potatoes and everyone was crying. That's how quick death happens sometimes. I hope I don't sound callous, but maybe I kind of am. You have to be in order to do this job. When they wheel in dead toddlers still in their Spider-Man PJs, you can't go to pieces. And you always focus on the little things if you aren't careful. One time this little boy came in and he had a temporary tattoo of SpongeBob on his arm. You remember putting those stupid things on? You wet the sticker, hold it on, and then take it off? Such a wholesome image. And here the kid was dead. I don't know. Maybe if I was a better writer, I'd be able to articulate why that sort of thing disturbs me. Since I have to say something, I'll say this. Kids shouldn't die. They shouldn't, but they do, and someone has to take care of their bodies. Anyway, I was nodding along to Winter Wonderland * and draining Mr. Thompson's blood when a loud crash rang through the empty building. I jumped a foot and inadvertently yanked the nozzle out of Mr. Thompson's abdomen. I fell back a step and bumped onto the machine, a sort of vacuum. Wouldn't you know, it tipped over and the top came off. Blood swept across the floor like the Red Sea closing on Pharaoh's army, and the nozzle fell from my hand, clattering to the table. "God damn it," I said through my teeth. There was a drain in the middle of the floor, so cleanup wouldn't be that bad. But still, I was so worried about the mess I had made that it wasn't until I was filling the mop bucket from the slop sink when it hit me. Wait a minute, wasn't there a loud noise? I looked at the closed door with a foreboding feeling. I cut the sink and listened, but heard nothing. It was probably one of the coffins in the showroom. A few were propped upright like those pics you saw from the Old West. Some dead gunslinger with a dour undertaker standing beside him like a fisherman with his prize catch. And sometimes they took a header. When I was finished mopping up this mess, I'd check it out. Pushing the wheeled bucket to the center of the room, I started to swab the deck, whistling Step into Christmas by Elton John. "I'm real sorry about that," I told Mr. Thompson honestly. "Sometimes I can be a real boob." He didn't reply. Which is a good thing. You can talk to the dead and be okay. If they start talking back, though, you got a problem. I opened my mouth to say something else, but the words cut off when another sound came, this one quieter than the first. For a second, I wasn't sure that I had heard it at all. Then it repeated, a soft, scraping sort of noise like sandpaper on a block of wood. I turned to the door, and as I did so, I realized what it was. Footsteps. My heart began to race. As if on cue, the light seeping in through the crack at the bottom of the door flickered, like something had passed in front of it. My heart dropped into the pit of my stomach and my hands tightened on the mop. Someone was here. My mind raced with 1,000 possibilities, each more terrible than the last. The funeral home wasn't in the best part of town, and crime had a way of, happening. Just recently, someone got faded 2 streets over, and a while back, some dude slid by a crack house with an AK and dumped a clip. I don't know why anyone would want to break into a funeral home, but hey, here we are. The shadow moved slowly, the hissing sound of its dragging footfalls so loud that I could hear them over the pounding of my own heart. I lifted the mop like a club and licked my lips. I started to call something, "Hey, buddy, I got a mop and I'm not afraid to use it," but that seemed really stupid, so I kept my mouth shut. The shadow passed by, and for a long time, nothing else happened. Then I heard the telltale clunk of the rear door at the end of the hall opening. I waited a little while after I heard it close again, then I tossed the mop aside and crept to the door. I pressed my ear to it and listened. Nothing. Sure that the danger had passed and that I absolutely wouldn't confront a junked-out burglar, I flung the door open and strode out into the hall like my name was John Wayne. "That's right, you better run." I swaggered over to the door and pushed it open. A cold blast of wet, wind-driven snow hit me in the face, and I choked. The building backed up to a parking lot, and on one side, a stand of trees separated it from a string of backyards open to each other. I spotted a dark figure shuffling away, but as soon as I had a bead on him, he disappeared into the trees. I looked around, and there, in the snow, was a single set of footprints leading away, slightly smeared as though the perp had been dragging a broken foot behind him. A nervous laugh welled up from my throat, and I shut the door. Coward. Come back and face me. I hurriedly shut and locked the door in case he decided to do just that. Better go see what he stole. The first place I went was to the showroom. Nothing was missing, and none of the coffins were upset. What did I hear then? In the next room over, I found it. A sleek pine casket lay on the floor of the viewing room, its hinges snapped and one of its 2 little doors standing open. Shit. Those things were expensive. Even worse, what kind of shape was the body in? I went over and moved the coffin. What body? Mr. Erickson, he of the brain aneurysm at dinner, was gone. I checked the whole room, even behind the door in case he was playing hide and seek. No go. He was nowhere to be found. I ran to the back door and threw it open. The rapidly falling snow had filled the footprints in just as cleanly as if they had never been there at all. A shiver went down my spine. Defeated, I went into the office to call my boss. Later, the police came and took my statement. Their theory was that someone had taken Mr. Erickson, and that was a good theory. What else could have happened to him? He didn't just get up and walk away, did he? Cue nervous laughter. On Christmas morning, the Erickson kids woke to find their dead father sitting in his lazy boy facing the tree, as if to watch them open presents. I can only imagine their screams of utter, mind-bending horror. The cops said it was a sick joke of some kind and left it at that. I bought into that for a long time, but it was bullshit. First of all, I saw one man. How could one man carry the corpse of a 210-pound man by himself? Bride over the threshold style? That didn't make any sense. It was possible, though. I mean, it did sound like the guy was struggling to move. Something in the back of my mind, some dark, primal, reptilian instinct, however, doesn't believe that. I know it's insane, but if you ask me, Mr. Erickson wanted to spend one last Christmas with his family.
That was creepy.
Is that a true story?
I don't know. It was on Reddit. It said it was true. So
that is creepy.
Guy's experience. It was a long story, but I thought it was really told well. And Sky, she did a great job on that one because
great job,
wild.
Sky.
I love the new AI. But yeah. So Rebekah, what did you think about that?
I've never heard that before. Like I think you said earlier that we may have heard about it before, but I never heard that. I've never heard anything like that before. But I don't know. Like I don't have any like opinion one way or the other that that's just a made up feel good Christmas story.
It totally can be made up, whatever. But it was very interesting and just intriguing. The whole process of him or whoever this person was telling that particular story. And
and I think too, like also with like her saying, that she like fell back and she hit the machine, like she was completely stopped in doing what she was supposed to be doing. And so that's where I was like, that's interesting that, that happened. And then, now he's gone basically. So she didn't get to continue doing what she was supposed to be doing basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Or he.
Yeah, I think it was
some of the creepiest stories when I was researching this topic were actually cases where, they'd have a body brought to the funeral home and then they'd be starting their process or whatever. And suddenly the body would talk or it would sit upright and they would realize that this person had been pronounced dead, but they weren't actually dead. And I read several stories like that. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I have. I've definitely have heard of that before, but it's never happened in my experience. But I have definitely heard of it. I've read the stories on it as well. That, Mrs. So-and-so was picked up and brought and all of a sudden, she's talking or in the back of the van and
right.
Hell no.
Yeah. So
that'll be on my last day at work.
Right.
I'll probably pull over the vehicle and leave it and just call as I'm walking down the street calling an Uber. FYI.
I quit. That's it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I've never experienced that, but I have heard that before.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. That's crazy.
So Rebekah, what do you want people to know about morticians, funeral directors? You guys seem like a angel brigade to do the task and duties that you guys do is just unreal.
I mean, I think that the biggest thing is to know that we're human as well. And, having to walk, basically strangers through one of the hardest times of their life. It takes, I think, a very specific person to be able to do that. And just to know that people that work in funeral homes are there because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. And they want to be able to help these families through the process, getting their person, taken care of, whether it's for cremation or burial or a viewing or whatever it is. And that it's something that we want to do. And I think that that's important, especially because these families are entrusting strangers, with their person that just died. And that's a really big deal. But from my experience, there's nobody in the business that doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important, and to know that we treat their loved ones with the utmost respect from the very beginning to the very end. And even though, like I was saying earlier, like that person isn't there in that body, like it's just the cavity, it's still somebody's person, it's still somebody's loved one, and it's our duty to treat them with respect, all the way through to the end. So I think it's just important that people recognize that going into the funeral home industry or into the business with their loved one, that these people are there to take care of the living and the dead, both.
Yeah, definitely. Well, from me, thank you for what you do. And it's an incredible job, and you do an incredible job at what you do. You always have, for sure. You're an amazing person. And I want to thank you for coming on tonight's show. Carolyn, do you have any last words for Rebekah Dillion?
Just kind of what Bobby said. I mean, thank you so much for what you do. It's so important, and it's something that people really don't think about or want to think about or talk about much. And, I don't know how thankful people are or how much appreciation you get, but really what you're doing is so important. And we all need that. We're all going to need these services at some point.
I'm inventing a machine to make your job obsolete.
Bobby wants it automated for his.
Bobby wants to beam me up right off the bat.
Exactly. Nothing left behind.
But yeah, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no, thank you. All right. That was tonight's episode. Carolyn, any last words? And thank you. Welcome back to the show, I should say. And hopefully you won't be missing any shows coming up lately or soon, I should say. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I hope not. I hope to be here for the rest of the shows. And yeah, just thank you, Rebekah. Thanks for coming on the show. This is such an interesting topic. Yeah. And another thing, I feel like a lot of people in the industry aren't, I don't know if they just don't feel like it's a taboo or if they just don't want to open up about it, but I feel like it's hard to get to people in the industry to open up and talk about this. So yeah, just thank you for coming on. It's a good show.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you.
In this captivating bonus segment, Carolyn Gray engages in a compelling conversation with her father, Mr. Gray, as he shares an eerie story he heard from a funeral director, recounting spine-chilling encounters with paranormal activity at the funeral home.
Okay, so remember when you told me that when you went to East Lawn to talk to the funeral director there, you told me that you asked him if he had ever seen a ghost, or you asked him something about ghosts. What did you ask him, and what did he say?
Right. That was several years ago. I got to tell you, though, first off, that I've met a lot of people that claim to have seen ghosts or had paranormal experiences like that. I never have. So the stories I have are hearsay that I've heard from other people. But this funeral director that I spoke to, where my mom and dad are buried, he said, well, I asked him, hey, just kind of almost in jest, I was just making conversation. So, you get a lot of dead people coming through here and coming and going. Have you ever seen anything weird, like anything that you can't explain? Has anybody here experienced anything like that, like a ghost? And when I brought that up, his face changed and it became really pale. And it's like, I had just pressed a button that I shouldn't have, because he got very uncomfortable and it seemed like something that he didn't want to really talk about. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he did say, the first thing he said is, we're really not supposed to talk about this with customers or visitors.
So he actually said that to you, that they're not allowed, like it's like a policy, they're not allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, it freaks people out. So,
Wow.
They're already freaked out about their dead relatives, so why freak them out more with ghost stories? I guess. But anyway, to be polite, he answered my question. He said, well, okay, I'm going to tell you the truth. Actually, there are a lot of weird things that happen here all the time. And most of the employees here have experienced something. They've seen something, they felt something, they heard something that couldn't be explained,
Really?
And he didn't go into too many details, but he did say that most of this happens at nighttime when it's dark. And, the employees that work there are there from a normal 8 to 5 shift. Mm-hmm. So he says, when it's daylight, when we go from daylight savings time back to standard time and it gets dark at like 5 o'clock at night, he said people make a beeline out the door right at 5, get into their cars, drive away, get away from that place as fast as they can, because it scares them. I mean, it's like everybody that works there,
they don't want to stay after dark.
Don't want to stay.
And he really said that to you?
Yeah, he told me another story too. He said, okay, so this is a company that owns different mortuaries and cemeteries kind of all over the region, I guess. But they have a headquarters office in downtown Sacramento, which is a few floors that they occupy, I guess. Or maybe they have other lessees. But in the basement of that building is the Sacramento County coroner. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like those TV shows you see about medical, what do you call them? Medical inspector?
Like investigation shows, medical investigation.
Yeah, but what do you call the title? The medical examiner? What's the...
Oh, yeah, like a coroner or a medical examiner.
Okay. And so, so again, it's like a funeral home where there's a lot of dead people being processed in and out of that place. Mm-hmm. So he said that he was working there, and he was on like the second or third floor in an office, kind of working alone, and he was working after hours. And he knew that there was only one other person in the building because everybody else had gone home. And that person would have been the primary security guard that kind of sat at the front desk in the lobby of the first floor. So he was a couple floors down. And so, no big deal, but he was working and he had to print some papers, some reports or whatever. And the copy room was outside his office, and you had to go down a corridor and down another corridor to get there. Mm-hmm. So he said that he printed some papers and he left, and because he was coming right back, he left the light on and he left the door open. Okay. So he came back, and to his surprise, the door was closed. It wasn't locked, but it was closed and the light was out. I thought, that's weird. I was sure that I left the light on and left the door open. So he sat back down, didn't think much of it, was doing his work, and then he had to print something again. So the same thing, but he said to himself, okay, this time I'm going to pay really close attention. I'm leaving the light on, and I'm definitely leaving the door open. Mm-hmm. Got his copies, came back, the lights were off and the door was closed.
Oh my God, that's creepy.
So he called the security guard, and let's say the guy's name was Joe. He said, Joe, have you been up here to do your rounds? I mean, did you come and close the office I'm working in? And he said, no, I haven't been up there in hours. And so they're the only two people in the building.
Yeah.
And they have surveillance to prove it. And, this happened. And so as soon as he was convinced that something weird was going on, he just gathered his papers, put them in his bag or his suitcase or his briefcase, and got out of there. He said he never worked late again.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
That same funeral home, if you want to hear one more, I did hear another weird one where I was visiting my mom's burial site. She was cremated, so her urn containing her ashes are in a mausoleum in a window that you can go in and visit. I was there during the day, and I came out, and there was this guy standing there who looked like he worked there. And because I'm curious and nosy and never mind my own business, I asked him, have you ever seen or experienced anything weird here? And he had an accent. I think he was Ukrainian. And he said, no, not really. So I thought, okay, that's good. That's good to know, actually. And so I was walking away, and he said, wait a minute, there was one thing, let me tell you. And I turned around, and he said, there was this one time that I had to, he's the guy that takes the backhoe and digs the graves to inter people, okay? Or that's one of his jobs. He's some kind of a groundskeeper. And he said that he was sent to go and exhume a coffin from a grave, and it was an old grave that belonged to an infant who had died. Okay, so it was buried there. And so he did that. He dug the grave up and removed the coffin and just kind of set it, on the side or whatever. And he was going to finish that later because it was his lunch break and or something, and he was going to take a break. So he sat down on one of the benches, he told me, and he was tired, and he kind of dozed off. And while he was in that in-between state of sleep and consciousness, kind of not quite fully asleep, but not really awake either, he said that he saw a woman walking toward him, and she seemed to be upset, and she was dressed in the costume of a nurse, but from decades ago, like the 1940s or 1950s or something. And she was walking right toward him, and she was carrying a dead infant in her arms. And when he realized what was going on, he kind of shook awake suddenly and abruptly, and shook his head, and the image left. It was gone. But he saw that, and it was right when he was involved in, interfering with
that child's grave.
So, who knows? Maybe his own imagination or something.
Did he tell you that he thought it was related to the grave he was digging up?
He didn't seem like a guy that was too concerned about ghosts or spirits.
Didn't believe in that stuff.
He didn't seem to believe in it. He just kind of brushed it off as well. It's something that happened. Can't totally explain it, but he didn't think that there was any big deal about it. He just thought it was interesting to share that happened to him.
That is interesting. I wonder, I'm sure you didn't ask or he didn't tell you, but it would have been interesting to check the dates on that grave to see if it was from that same time period, the 40s or 50s, from when the nurse was dressed from.
Yeah, that would have been interesting, but we never, the conversation kind of ended, and I didn't want to press too much because really, when the people you talk to that work in that business, a lot of them don't really want to discuss it.
They probably don't. Yeah, they probably don't want to think about that and get freaked out more.
Yeah. Anyway, those are some of the stories I remember.
Yeah, thanks for telling me. I really wanted to ask you about that because you kind of told me it a couple of years ago, just like as a passing comment, but I didn't really ask you about it and we didn't get into it. So,
yeah.
But did the funeral director say anything else just besides that no one stays after dark? He's not allowed to talk about it. He didn't, and that one story from the coroner's office, he didn't have anything else?
No, experiences? This was many years ago that I had that conversation. I think everything I've given you is pretty much everything that we talked about.
Okay.
All hearsay, secondhand. I didn't see any ghosts. And I've been after that cemetery quite a bit. I never saw a ghost, but I was always there during the day. So,
Dad, that's the cemetery that I went with Jonathan at night and a ghost screamed at me. It was at that cemetery, East Lawn on Greenback. Have I told you that story?
Really haunted, it sounds like. Yeah, you told me that.
I think it was a ghost. Jonathan thinks it was just a homeless guy or a crackhead or something, but I think it was a ghost.
That's a more plausible explanation.
No, it's not, because why would a crackhead be hanging out in a cemetery by themselves at night? I think it was a ghost.
There's a lot of benches out there they can sleep on.
That's true, and it's a safe place where they can go where no one's going to probably bother them. But
And you know, right behind that cemetery is a pet cemetery.
Shut up.
No, it is. It's a cemetery. It's part of the same, company that owns that.
Oh, actually, that's true. I've seen it back there.
Yeah,
Right.
and I never saw any ghosts there either. Those are mostly canine dogs that, cops were really
police
attached to in their crews, and when they died, the cops wanted to give them a, kind of special burial for all the service to the public that they did. Some of those dogs die in the line of duty too. Military dogs too.
There was kind of a famous story that happened. Yeah. In Sacramento, like a couple years ago, there was like a dog that died. I think it was probably just old. I don't think he died doing anything, but it was like a canine dog, cop dog. And I remember it was like a big news story in Sacramento.
Well, a cop, the canine dog, they go around with them in their patrol car. That's their partner,
Yeah.
And a bond definitely forms between two cops that are partners on patrol. And those dogs are like cops.
Yeah, they are. And you know what else? When you go to East Lawn, the very front part of it that you can see from Greenback when you're driving by, those are all cops. All of those graves are cops. And a lot of them died in the line of duty. They died young.
Really? I didn't know that.
I noticed that one of the times I went there. Yeah. Thanks, Dad.
Ethel, do you know where you are?
My body.
You have passed over. You died.
No. Everything, my body, they took it. It's torn.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
We learned that for the past 8 years, military pilots frequently encountered unknown objects in controlled airspace off both the east and west coast across the continental United States in test and training areas and ranges. We don't know where they come from, who made them, or how they operate.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Cleveland County 911.
I don't know if I should have called this in or not, but
What's going on?
if I'd had my camera, I'd take a picture of it.
Take a picture of who?
I don't know what it was. He's walking upright like a man. I would not kill it because I was afraid to. But it went back up the mountain.
Cleveland County 911.
Hello.
Can I help you?
Yes. This is Tim.
Uh-huh.
You probably have my address.
Yes, sir. What's going on now?
I shined the light on this thing.
Okay, what did it look like?
It looked like a giant ape with a man's face. But I was afraid to kill it. And it made a whistling sound. He was about 9-10 foot tall with real long arms. I go out there, he gets gone. Then I come back in the house, and he gets back there again, and my dogs are just raising heck. Would I get in any trouble if I shot and killed this beast, this animal, or whatever it is? Would I get in any trouble?
I can't answer that question.
If he goes too close to me, I won't kill him.